right, just so you know, this now works. I didn't change anything except I went and reloaded it. So there's Jeff.html, calling Jeff.php, really original with the names here. All right. But one thing is where I could have, one thing is I can't run it from here. I can't go, and I don't know if I did that, but I can't go to here and say launch in Chrome. That'll work, and maybe I did that. But if I do this and then I go to here and I click it, that's probably what I did. I've got to run it. I've got to run it under XAMPP because running it from the browser is a browser type of tool. But if I go back to the same thing and I bring it up in XAMPP, so in other words, if I come here and I type in http://localhost jeff.html, looks the same, but now when I come through here and put that in and click submit, now it works. If you've got PHP code, PHP is an interpreted language that's all interpreted at the server. So if you want it to be able to do anything, you'll have to do it either on a server directly or on something like we're using. All right, that's probably what I did. Oh yeah, it's not the first time. It won't be the last time either. Okay. So everybody hear what I said? I want to say it one more time. When you create your files, be they HTML files or PHP files, you will save them under htdocs. Now, what I should have done, actually being if I wanted to say, oh, I'm a better programmer than that, what I should have really done is on the C drive here, this is probably going to screw some stuff up, but I don't really care. This is just garbage files anyway. All these files that I added, the Jeff.html, etc., there's absolutely nothing wrong with putting those into a folder. All right, so we can put them in a folder 08-19-2014. All right, so I come in there and I grab Jeff HTML, my first PHP file. Anything that looks like it's got a date of 8/19 on it, I guess. And grab those and throw those into here. That's what you really should do. Because if you don't, what you're going to realize is by default, a bunch of stuff gets put out here for you anyway. All right, under htdocs. And if you just keep throwing everything under htdocs, what's going to happen is, that was nice. But what's going to happen otherwise is your htdocs is going to get really fast. It's going to get real big. All right. And then I'll have to make sure that when I run this the next time, now if I try this again, it's not going to work because I removed the files from there. But if I go to, the other thing you can do too is, what if I don't know what my file's called? I can say http://localhost. I better check and make sure I'm taping. Yeah. All right, so http://localhost/ 08-19-2014. Then it gives me a list of my files. All right, now if I'll tell you for sure, and I know this for a fact, I'm not going to do it right now. If there's a CSS file in here, for example, so let's say there was jeff.css, so you'll run that. You already saw that. It'll try to run this, but now it's trying to run the PHP file directly instead of getting the information from the HTML file. So it doesn't know what first name and last name are. All right, I'll show you how to fix that in just a second. But same with this one. Now that was all I did was I saved that HTML file with a PHP extension. But what I'm telling you is if I come in here, I'm just going to quickly create a real garbage file. All right, yeah, no for all of them. That'll work. All right, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to literally create a CSS file. So I know I wouldn't use it, but just so you get the idea. So file, save as. I want to save it out here, and I'm just going to call it styles.css. Okay, so it's in there now. Now when I come through here and I look at these files, they're styles. Why did I get that? Why didn't it do something? It has no way of knowing. You're right. There's basically is no connection. when you try to run something in XAMPP and it doesn't know what it is you're trying, typically it'll just spit out the code. All right, and I'd like to tell you I did that on purpose, but that'd be a lie. But when I was making those mistakes before, one of the things that Ullman actually says in the first chapter and near the end where he talks about debugging is make sure that you're running the thing from inside of a server rather than just running it in the browser. And he tells you in there, if all you get is a copy of the source code, you're probably running it from inside of the browser rather than running it from a server-side tool, which is what I did. Now, just so you know, if I wanted this blue, I don't know why I would, but if I did, I could come in and either, just so you see this, under, what was it, Jeff.php, I could come in here. I'm not going to be able to really do anything in here, but I could come in, probably could, but that would take too much thought on my part. And if I came into my HTML file, I could come in and just add this style. Oops. What is it? Not style, is it? Fine. No. Link href equals, that's style. Style.css. All right, rel equals, what is it? Style sheet? I don't even remember anymore. Too long of a day, I guess. All right, so I'm going to put that in there. Now I'm going to come back to here, refresh, and run Jeff again, jeff.html. It's not blue. What I wanted to prove to you is that you can't do that. That was not a very good job of proving it to you, though. So what did I do? What did I do wrong? You can use blue. And actually, the text should have been blue. Let's try the background color. Actually, no. Let's just try background. Syntactically, that's fine. All right. Link href equals style, rel equals style sheet. Am I missing anything? I don't think I am. Did I call it? Oh, it's because I called it styles, not style. All right. So let's come back to here, refresh. There you go. It was fine to begin with. You can literally write CSS commands inside of PHP if you want to. Most of the time people don't do that, but you can do it if you want to. All right, I was looking in here, and unfortunately I've got 3 books in Course Smart written by this author, but they haven't put this book in, which is the one I asked him to put in. So I just sent another email to my publishing rep asking him if he'll put it in. All right, so we're going to go, but not for too much longer. I know it gets to be a long day. Just imagine if you had the C class today too, how long that would be. All right. Just to show you a couple things. I don't know if you even have the book, but I just want to mention a couple things that are in the book. Okay. This is very project oriented. If you haven't noticed, there's tons of little mini projects in here. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is what Ullman does, I don't know why he does this, but what he does is when he creates the project, okay, he tells you the name of it. Everybody cool with that? But then when he goes and runs it, he uses a different name. So it doesn't work. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you said that makes no sense. Not to me either. So I've been cleaning them up. I've got to find where I put that. It's either on here, my H drive, or it's upstairs. But I've cleaned up like the first 8 chapters. So we'll be able to run that. We'll look at a lot of the code that he's put in there. All right. In the beginning, he tells you the book is not a comprehensive programming reference. It provides the knowledge you need to begin to start building websites using that. Now, I want to show you a couple more things, and we'll just call it a period. First is, this is the website for everything PHP, php.net. Okay. This is the second time that they've changed the look of this website. It used to look really ugly. Now, if you look at that, you go, wow, it used to be really ugly? No, it used to be a lot uglier, but it was much easier to use. You can still use it, but it's harder to use than it used to be. I'm just telling you that. But if you go into Google, and for example, if I go into Google and I just type in PHP arrays, just as an example, okay, and I go to search, notice almost always what comes up first. php.net, and you'll get something from the manual. It's a well-written manual in that what they do is they explain what it is, then they give you syntax, and they give you example after example, and in many of the examples that you'll see in here, you have people who make comments on them on the bottom. It's worth noting that you can also do this type of thing. So what I'm telling you is a really good first resource when you've got PHP questions. And I'm not talking, I mean, I'm here, John's here. John's gone through the class. All right, I think he knows PHP very well. All right, hopefully I'm not speaking too out of turn there, okay? And Mike knows it too. Mike's actually done professional PHP development work. All right. But this used to be a lot nicer and more intuitive than it is right now. Let's put it that way. All right. But there's a lot of good sites out there. There's the usual players. W3 Schools has a PHP tutorial. There's a lot of other ones too. All right. So again, if I come through here, PHP tutorials, gee, I only get 103 million hits. All right. So there's plenty. And again, some of them are really good. The W3 Schools is very simple. There is a simple tutorial right in php.net. It's very short, unless they've changed that. It's 3 or 4 pages. You're not going to learn a whole heck of a lot from it. I will tell you, this is really good, and I've saved this out there. It's out there someplace. I think this is the 101. See, yeah, down the rabbit hole. This is, PHP is kind of under the ownership of a company that's called Zend. They basically own everything. 4 years ago, I went to a Zend PHP conference in San Diego, and I sat for the certification test, and I was amazed that I passed it. But I did. So I'm PHP 5.3 certified. 5.4 is the newest one now, but I have to go back there. They don't want you to do the certifications online, or at least where I did it, they don't want you to. And the school's not going to send me to San Diego again. I'm pretty sure of that. All right. But this thing, it's from Zend, and I can just show you what the URL is, and I can, it's no biggie one way or the other, but if you want to look at it, this is one of the ones. I've actually gone through this whole tutorial, and that's why I can say that it's pretty good. There's like 14 or maybe even a couple more lessons than that. 14. So it's from devzone.zend, etc. I can even save this one out there. But notice, when you look at it, it breaks it down into all the different PHP areas. There's a whole thing on loops. There's a couple things on databases, etc. It's really pretty well done. I've gone through a lot of the tutorials that are out there. Some of them are really good, just like anything else. Some of them are just not very good at all. But that's one of the better ones that I've seen. And like I said, I've even gone through the one that they have under W3 Schools. It's really, really, really basic. But if you say, well, that's what I'm looking for, then nothing wrong with that. Oh, that's under there, and I'll put what we've been working on under there also. All right. So they even mentioned at the beginning of the book, the author says in the introduction, PHP cannot be used for client-side features. All right, and that's what I tried doing. So you saw what happened when I tried doing it. All right. He talks about why to use PHP. It is, as far as I know, it's the #1 server-side, language that's being used right now for web apps. I could be wrong on that. I mean, there's other ones that are used with it. It works well with Java script. It works well with HTML. It works well with CSS3. You can use it with jQuery. You can use it with MySQL. All right, it's really seamless the way you work with it there. It was written specifically for dynamic web page creation. It's free and cross-platform. You can oftentimes take a program that you write and just put it on a Mac and not change anything, and it'll work without a single change to it. All right, it's the most popular tool available for developing dynamic websites. As of this writing, and that book is a few years old, PHP was in use in over 75% of all websites, and it's the 4th most popular programming language in the world. All right. He's got a website, just so you know. And what I've done here, just so you see that it's here, is under the P drive, there's some PHP articles, a couple tutorials that I found out there. That's where where your homework will go, the in-class stuff. I've already started it there. Some miscellaneous junk that I found. All right. These are a bunch of code examples I've written. In fact, if you go through these, some of them have got, there's like 40 or 50 different PHP examples that I've done over the years. I just took them and threw them all out there, and there's a couple things full of them. All right, so if you're interested in that. The tutorials, Point PHP tutorial is out here. Their MySQL tutorial is out here. I saved the TiZag tutorial. There's that 101. That's the thing I already told you about. So there it is. That's out there. But what I wanted to show you is this. That's all the code that's in the book. All right, again, Ullman makes all of his code available. So it's all there. It's in a zip file. And you can see there's a Mac version and a non-Mac. So each chapter, so for instance, here's chapter 1. You'll notice they're almost all PHP files. All right. Some of them, like I said, you're going to have to make changes. Some of them you could copy and just run them directly in XAMPP right now. All right. A lot of them, just so you know that. All right. His website is larryullman.com. It's an okay website. And there's just one more thing I want to mention. We've already gone through a lot of Chapter 1. They talk about basic syntax. They talk about what CSS is, so we don't have to go over that again. All right. They show you how to write the PHP info script and then test it, so we already did that. One weird thing kind of about PHP, just so you see this. All right. Anybody want to guess? Okay, if I would say this. What does the system think first name is right now? No, you might think that because it's in uppercase, but the point is what happens right there, it's not going to print anything out for that, or it'll print out null. It's like JavaScript in that it'll create a brand new variable that's called $first name with capital letters. So variables in this language are case sensitive. Everybody hear that? Sounds simple, but for some reason when they did this, they decided that function names are not case sensitive. All right? So variables are, functions aren't. I'll expect you to write everything. Your variables, variables use camel case like this, and for your function names, I'll expect them always to be in lowercase. All right. Now you say, well, you take off if I do? You know, why ask? That's a stupid question. Sorry, but it is. All right. Probably not. But that's the way it's written in real application code. So that's the way why you should write it that way. All right. He talks about the manual in Chapter 1. Comments. Does this look familiar? Remember how we did comments? There's a multi-line comment. All right. How do we do single-line comments in JavaScript or in Java? But there's one more way that you can do a single line comment in here. They ripped this off from Perl, and that's to start it with a pound sign. I don't have a problem if you want to use this, but I will tell you again, almost always it's done like this. All right. But if you decide you don't want to do it that way, it's not that big a thing to me one way or the other. Now, last thing I'm going to go over, this is the end of Chapter 1. He talks about basic debugging steps. Number 1, make sure you're always running PHP scripts through a URL. In other words, through the server. I didn't do that. All right. It says it must be requested through http://something. When you see actual PHP code instead of the result, most likely you're not running it through a URL. So you already know. I already showed it to you. Not on purpose, but because I screwed up. Number 2, know what version of PHP you're running. Typically, after version 5, almost everything is the same, just so you know. But there are still older applications out there that are running version 4 point something. They're really dangerous because they're filled with security holes. All right, you know when I showed you this before and I did this, let me just get rid of this. All right. What I'm doing there is I'm saying, okay, when I went over, my method was post, if you remember in here, my method was post. So that's saying grab the name, first name, and the name, last name, and use them in here. But prior to version 5, you could use something that was called superglobals. So if I created it in here, and I called it first name, I could do it right in here and just call it the same name and not even have to worry about using a $sign. You understand what I'm saying? That was really bad because people could do all sorts of things intermingling PHP and HTML that they shouldn't have done, and that was filled with security holes. They were called super globals, and they don't let you do that anymore. All right, come version 5, they didn't let you do it anymore. That's why he says know what version you're running. Make sure display errors is on. It's on by default. I want to show you this file that's in there. I'm not sure where it is, so I'll have to search for it, but it's in here. Is that back up? I think it's in here in a PHP directory, but we'll find out. I think that's it. It's something like that. I don't know if that's there's the ini file. Remember I showed you before the short tags and all that stuff? Anything that's in here that starts with a semicolon is a comment. So right now, as an example, go down to where they're actually here, error reporting. All right. If I wanted to make sure that default value is this, all I do is I remove that. I will tell you, don't play with this file. All right. I shouldn't have probably even done that. But if you say, screw you, I'm playing with it anyway, it's on my virtual desktop, then do it. But I will warn you that if you do that, make a copy of PHP INI, call it something like php.ini.old. So not if, but when you screw up the file, you can go back to the original one. All right? All right. Check to see the HTML source code. So again, I don't know if you noticed that or not, but when we ran this, whoops, sorry, when we ran this over here, come on. It /08 dash 19 dash 2014, right? All right, that beautiful blue background. Submit. I can go over here. I can still view my page source. That's all it's going to show me. All right, or I can go back to where we just were, and I can view it, you know, just still view the page source. But basically what I'm telling you is, unless I'm writing out some HTML, which I didn't, you can see what it shows you. Not very much. All right. Trust the error message. Just so you see, I want you to see a couple of these things, all right? So I'm going to go back to that code. Not that code. But I'm going to go back to the PHP file. And all I'm going to do is remove that semicolon. Okay? In fact, let's make a few things. I'll spell first wrong, and I'll leave that thing off there for last name. You can already, well, I guess you can't, but let's go back and just rerun this. All right, there's jeff.html. It's still there because the error is in the PHP code. All right, notice it gave me at least what it could find. When you get stuff that looks like this, T underscore whatever, chances are really good you left off a single quote or you left off a double quote. It can be other things, but that's more often than not. All right, you notice that's on line 3, so it stopped right there. All right, so since it stopped, I go back into here. I say, oh, that's line 3. Ooh, I left, you know, I must have screwed something up. Yeah, I spelled that wrong. Okay, so boom, I fix that. I come back again. All right, and I run it again. Now I still give me something on line 3. All right, but notice it says last name, so it's really on line 4, but it didn't make it that far. So I put this in. Boom. I run it one more time. All right, I'll gave it to me. I'm surprised. Because I left that off. And it might be because it's the last one on here, so let me leave off one of these. Yeah. That T echo, you've forgotten something. Either you used a single quote with a double quote with a single quote, you left off a semicolon, or something like that. This is all the stuff you're going to see. And the last thing, because that's what we should have done earlier, is take a break. So what we've done is we basically have gone over all of Chapter 1. All right. What I'd like to do is I'm going to save this file. There's not a lot in it. Okay, I think you'd all agree with that. But I'm going to save this thing. And then what we're going to do is on Thursday is we're going to come back and look at this. And in the HTML file, we're going to make the form a little bigger. We're going to put a few different kinds of fields in it. And then we're going to validate it. But all the validation we've ever done in here, all of the validation we've ever done has been on the client side. We're going to validate in here. So we're going to be validating on the server side. Hopefully you heard me say this before, or Arinda, or both of us. But if you're writing an application that's going to have a server-side interface, you should validate on the client and then repeat the same validations on the server. Why is that? That's you're on the right track. If you validate on the client side, what are you usually going to validate with? No. What else? What else? You got HTML, you got CSS, and what else? JavaScript. Can't people turn JavaScript off on their browser? Yes, they can. And there are people in the past who have done that because they know people aren't validating on the server side. All right? So you're hosing yourself. So quite often you put tests in there on the client side. You know we can put tests in here. For instance, I can for first name, I can come in here and say required, right? I can put that in. I put that in, and I come back here, and I go back to run this, and I submit, and it gives me that. We don't care about that right now. So we're not going to put any validation in on the client because we're more interested now in getting it to validate on the server. All right. So that's what we'll start looking at. We'll use some functions like isSet, and we'll look at some other stuff so that you can run through this. So I'll try to remember to do that before class. I want to make this bigger. Do you remember that most of you, not all of you, but I think most of you had me for JavaScript, and hopefully Doug used it also. Did Doug do this when I had the JavaScript class at the end? I made this real huge form, and I showed it how to validate it totally with JavaScript. Did Doug have you guys do that? All right, I want to use that same form, but I want to validate it all on the server side because it's got a lot of different kinds of fields in it, and that'll allow us to look at a lot of different stuff. And I'll say, okay, you think we're done? And it'll be a trick question because, of course, it's no. All right, because if you're checking to validate something, you don't want to just check to see if it's empty or not. All right, we'll run regular expression patterns, and we'll do a few other things. By the time we finish that, and I don't know if we'll finish that whole program, but we'll try on Thursday. By the time we do, we'll have already gone through a lot of the information in chapters 1, 2, and 3. I still want to go back and go over that with you. But my plan is to go over, because I had it written down, chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and probably 7, all that. Then give you your first assignment. So that's a lot of stuff. Yeah, but so much of it, okay, do you want to learn about for loops again? Do you want to learn about while loops again? Because it's the same stuff. So I don't want to spend much time on it, but you just see it thrown inside of a PHP program. So we're not going to spend a boatload of time on that. And that's part of the problem I had last year when we'd run out of time because we kept going over example after example in every language. I think you're all bright enough that we don't have to do that. It's not that the people before weren't. I wasn't bright enough to think about, geez, we've already done this. We don't have to do it again. All right. Questions on anything we've gone over? All right. Hopefully that was a decent enough introduction for you. All right. So that's all that I had. And Stefan's here again. He's an expert on PHP. You might not have known that, but no, was there another one? Did you hear that? He just said there was another shooting in St. Louis. Do you know what town it was?
They said St. Louis.
Yeah, I know, but even where it was, Ferguson is a suburb because my daughter lives in a suburb of St.
That's why
Louis.
I wanted to say that. That's
Yeah,
what I think.
I'll go look.
Yeah, it's over there.
The other side. Yeah, that's the other thing. Have you noticed this? Everything they're showing on here, now they're having people and they're all supporting the officer. Notice the color of every person in there. And when CNN shows this and they show all the people marching, notice the color of every one of those people. And I've seen it on the news. They're not all black and they're not all white. But that's the way it's being portrayed. And this is just getting really ugly. Really ugly. Yeah. I'm looking. I mean, I don't see that they said another one.
Live, when you click on live, they're just having that stuff.
On live?
On live CNN.
Where is that?
Oh, scroll to the left, right. Then lower down.
Lower down? Yeah. That's one of the reasons I was a reporter. That's when I was at covering a story and it was an art show and there were supposed to be 200 people there, but it was 110 degrees, and like 10 people came. There was no story, so my boss said, "Then you make one up." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You find something that's worth writing about." So there were 10 people there, so I went up to each one of them, and by the time I got to close to the end, there was an interesting person there. So I wrote a little story on her. Don't tell me, not when my daughter's 24. Was it a woman or a man? Well, where are you? Are you on CNN or are you on someplace else?
No, no, no. That's Michael Brown. This guy.
Yeah, that was Michael Brown.
Yes, yeah. They said he was waving a knife. He was waving a knife and saying, "Shoot at me. I dare you to shoot at me." Something. Or at least
Police officers kill knife-wielding black male near Ferguson.
there it is.
A large crowd, some shouting, "Hands up, don't shoot," gathered Tuesday at the site where the officer shot and killed a knife-wielding man. It happened just a few miles from Ferguson. The man had a knife and refused police orders to drop the weapon. You know, maybe I've told you this. A guy who lives around the corner from me, he's a detective for Beloit, and they're told when anybody flashes a weapon and if they make even a step towards you and you warn them, you are supposed to shoot to kill. You are not supposed to shoot them in a leg or an arm or even that arm with no, because they're considered a violent threat. That they are told that, and it's not just in Wisconsin; it's all over. They are told that they are supposed to shoot them and try to kill them.
Oh yeah, shoot at me now.
Yeah, police said the man was acting erratically and told officers, "Shoot me now, kill me now." Well, he got his wish. No, it's not a joke. That's what he wanted. That's what he got, right? You know, my daughter, when she calls me up and she's half in tears because she has to go to Ferguson for her job. You know, and she's told them already. She said, "I'd rather not work here." And they've tried to get the people to come to her, the clients that she has, so she doesn't have to go out there. She told me, "I will not go out there at night." All right. We went and visited her a couple of weeks ago. We were staying right outside of Ferguson, where we stayed. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a nice enough community. The college where that Brown was supposed to be going to school, we stayed a mile from the college. We drove by it every time we were going to her house. This is just getting really ugly really fast. Yeah, yeah. You know, and there was actually an article I saw yesterday on CNN too that I thought was pretty good. That this is what it was, and I've watched his show, but Al Sharpton, if you know who he is, all right, and the thing said, Al Sharpton, is he the solution or part of the problem? And it was actually very interesting because he gets on his bandwagon whenever anything like this happens.